All right. So, before we get to Wind Down Wednesday tonight, I love that. I love how I say that. I'm totally going to cut this
You're
out.
gonna have to cut that out.
Well, or not. We
Well,
just let him in on the
exactly. Then
show,
you're not
bro.
gonna cut it out, and it's gonna be shitty.
We just let him in on the show, bro.
No, this is a bad idea.
Okay, we're not letting him in the show.
We should probably restart.
Okay. Here's the question. After having played Corruption 2029, is it something we should play for the podcast?
No.
Is it something that... Damn. Ouch.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but...
It makes me sad. I really wanted to like that game. I like the other game that studio's put out quite a bit.
Mutant Year Zero.
Mutant Year Zero. Not Mutineer Zero, but Mutant Year Zero.
Correct.
Really liked it. Thought it was great. Wanted to like this one. It's not as good. I don't think it's a bad game.
Right.
But I don't necessarily think it's podcast worthy. I don't think you and I will probably play more of it. It's just, it's okay.
Yeah.
And if you're really into that kind of game and you're like looking to sink some hours into something, you don't know what to do, this will get you there.
Yeah.
But it's not Mutant Year Zero. And I would say if you wanted to play a game for the podcast, that would be the one.
Yeah, and so I guess that's kind of the two questions, right? It's like for the podcast and for who and for what, right? Like, is it for you,
right.
the listener, the audience? But even for us, me. And I agree with you, man. I totally agree. It's, I actually think that like Mutant Year Zero in a lot of ways was pushing the XCOM formula towards the simplistic side of it from like a story perspective, because like XCOM kind of felt like a full-fledged game that had a board game combat system, but it had this like separate game that was going on at the same time where you're managing resources, and it felt like there was like a story kind of going on, or at least like
there was a story for sure.
At least RPG systems where you're like unlocking scientific different types of armor and different types of weapons, and you're like leveling up and you're like learning more about the aliens, and you're finally going towards the culmination. And it did end, as a matter of fact. Yeah, the skill trees. And I felt Mutant Year Zero was a much more simplistic version of that. But I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Really, really, like thoroughly, like honestly, amazing game. But I felt it was pushing the limits of how limited you could be, how much you could remove
the story.
Yeah, how much closer to a board game you could really be, as opposed to how much closer to a video game in the traditional sense it could be. And I think this one
went too far.
Yeah, but I think that to me is like a cry of a dying studio. I don't think they intended or wanted, maybe I could be wrong, but I didn't feel like they wanted to go lesser with this game, but they just didn't have as much story to back it up. Their outside of the game games are simplified, their systems are simplified. Everything feels simplified in a way that I think is maybe just too much.
It also seemed like they put it out fairly quickly after Mutant Year Zero, I think.
And for a low price point, I mean, they know what it is. They're not being dishonest about what it is.
Which I respect.
Oh, I definitely respect it. And I bought this game very intentionally because I actually got Mutant Year Zero for free through the Epic Store. And I felt like that was a travesty. Like, I wanted to pay for Mutant Year Zero because it was so fucking good. It was
really good.
So I threw some money this way at the studio. I hope they're well. I'm nervous with a game like this that they're going the wrong direction, because I felt like, if you trace the lineage from XCOM to Mutant Year Zero to this game, I think it's the wrong direction. It's too simplistic. It's not as grandiose. It's not as like full-fledged video game from all these different angles and culminating in the story and stuff like that. But the gameplay is still fun. I may return to it to play some of the game just because XCOM is still fun. But, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's this versus the expansions for Mutant Year Zero. I haven't played those either. And I feel like I'm much more interested in playing the expansions of Mutant Year Zero than I am of playing this game. Mm-hmm. If that kind of makes sense.
I think that's very fair.
Yeah. And if you're out there and you haven't played Mutant Year Zero, I mean, just, dude, that game is a delight.
That's what I think. Like, if we could recommend you a game from that studio, play Mutant Year Zero. Like, you won't regret that. But this one...
Yeah. And I would say play it on hard, and I would say play it on hard and save often, and don't be afraid to load, and don't take this concept of save scumming and beat yourself up about the fact that you're saving and loading. Like, that's how humans learn, with rapid iteration, and so allow yourself that. If you're the type of player that enjoys that, allow yourself that, and play it on hard, and play your fucking balls off. Like, it's hard, but it is doable, and it is absolutely satisfying. I had such a great experience with Mutant Year Zero on hard. Not the one where you like perma die and everything. Like the one, it's like not fucking Juggernaut mode or some shit. It's the anyways. Okay, thank you for listening to this.
I know. I love that it's called 2 Minutes Reviews, and then you got
No,
way away from that.
no. You created that idea.
Yeah, because it's a great idea.
Maybe.
Well, we'll find out what people
I
think.
didn't. I decidedly did not call it 2 minute reviews. I called it the verdict.
All right, fair enough.
So we've played some of the game. What's the verdict?
That's our verdict.
Yes, that's our verdict. Thank you so much for listening, and take care of yourself.